when I was around 10 or 11, and then my brother got arrested for a homicide. So that was like my hero. So he was gone for like 20 years. And I kind of think that's where a lot of the my anger started coming out. I was like, man, I don't have my big brother to keep me in line. So my story, I add to it, of course, as I get older, but I also remember stuff that happened like early childhood trauma. Some of the earliest memories I can remember is I had an abusive father. I remember he was beating my mom, and I remember I was under a table, and I remember I could see, he was hitting her with the high heel, and I could see blood coming down her face. And I remember her saying, help me, call the cops, but I didn't have the courage to do it. Plus, he's like, father's like your hero, so I just couldn't do it. And as I got older, a little bit older, I was around 5 at this time, I got kidnapped by him. And he had told me my mother was dead. So I don't know how long I was gone or away from him, but he used to always tell me, like, your mom's dead. And he took me from our home. He didn't live there with us at all. He had just got out of prison or something. So for a long time, I thought my mom was dead. So eventually, like, we were on the run. I didn't know why, like cops were chasing us. I was 5 years old. We were hiding out. We were in Colorado. And I remember one day he's like, hey, I got to take you home. And I'm like, well, where's my home? He's like, I got to take you to your mom. And I'm like, well, you said my mom's dead. He said, no. So he dropped me off at her work. And I remember I went in there and I seen her. Well, first I remember her friend, I think it's the reason I like M&Ms. She had a jar of M&Ms, and she was like, here you go, eat as many as you want. And I was starving because we didn't have that much food. So I remember I kept just eating these M&Ms. I remember the green ones vividly. I don't know why. And I just kept eating them. And my mom came out. And from that point on, I didn't talk for years. We didn't know nothing about trauma or nothing like that. I think I might have seen a counselor or something, but as our family, we didn't really do stuff like that. So that's where a lot of I believe the early childhood trauma started right there. And then throughout the years, my mom had some abusive drug addict boyfriends, and my brother was involved in a homicide when I was, my father died at 11. When I was around 10 or 11, and then my brother got arrested for a homicide. So that was like my hero. So he was gone for like 20 years. And I kind of think that's where a lot of my anger started coming out. I was like, man, I don't have my big brother to keep me in line. So I started messing up in school, got sent to LA, messed up out there. Came back here, went to another high school, messed up there till finally I just gave up on high school and just started working. I think when I was around 18 is when I caught my first case out in Modesto. I think I did around a year out there in the Modesto jail. And then let's see, I had my daughter when I was 20 or 21. That changed my life. I try to be better. I try to be a better person, but I don't know why, I just always drank and got in trouble with the law still. I thought I was a good father, taking care of my child, paying the bills, but, getting locked up all the time. And then in 2010 or 9, I went to prison. That was a rough patch in my life. I remember I was on the state of execution, and I had 30 days to turn myself in, so time's like ticking. I'm like, man, I'm going to prison, and my daughter's in the room, and I go, man, I'm gonna leave and go get some pizza. And she starts crying, big old tears too, and I'm like, I have so much anger and frustration. I yell at her, like, what are you crying for? And she's like, because you said leave, and I know one day you're gonna leave and not come back. So then I just start crying with her. I'm like, man, I'm sorry, mija. I was like, you know what, me and you will go get the pizza. So I get out in, I think, 2010 or 11. and I'm upset. I go to probation, you know, they pat you down, they ask you all these questions, you gotta pee in a bottle, you gotta do all these things. And I'm walking out of probation, and I'm lost. I'm like, man, what am I gonna do? And I run into a good friend of mine, his name is Kaz. I'm walking down the street, he's like, man, come here, bro. And I'm like, man, what are you doing? He's like, man, I'm doing reentry work. So that's where I started my healing process. He introduced me to healing circles, trauma-informed care, things like that. Worked through a lot of my trauma, hired me on to work with him, and that's where I started doing this kind of work. We started doing kind of violence prevention work, trauma-informed care, healing work, gang intervention work. I did that for about 15 years now, something like that. And then I started to, other agencies started wanting me, and that's when the Office of Violence Prevention came. One of the managers and the supervisors met with me. They're like, man, we want you to come check out our program. And I was perfectly happy where I was working, right next to my house. You know, I could walk there in 10 minutes. It was like, not an easy job, but it was easy. And I went and seen what the Office of Violence Prevention was doing, and it blew my mind. I never seen anybody manage violence like the way they were managing it, you know, and have the resources that they have to actually help people in real time. And I just started working with them. I worked my way up from a peacekeeper. I remember my first week on the job, they got you going through all these trainings. You never think it's gonna be that hard. You're like, man, I could do this. I've been doing this for years. We go to the hospital. Couple people are, passed away. Couple people on the scene, a couple folks are in the hospital, shot. We don't know if they're gonna make it. Families in the waiting room, crying, not knowing what's going on, and it kind of just, it just opened my eyes to the trauma that one bullet can do, the damage that one bullet, it could be one small caliber, change somebody's life. So I started taking the work even more seriously. I seen that, like Stockton, you know, it's a beautiful city with beautiful people, but it has some problems. It has a lot of communities that need help, a lot of folks that have trauma that haven't been dealt with. So I just started pushing my hardest, worked my way up to supervisor, and that's where I'm at right now. So one of my clients were coming in. The message I would give them, you know, is, you know, first saying, welcome home, you know, letting them know that, you know, that we care about them, that they're a blessing, you know, that they're sacred, you know, and we need them to help us. We need them to help the city. We need them to help their families, you know, help them with purpose. Sometimes folks just need help finding purpose. A lot of our young men are lost. So I let them know that, you know, I'm not above you. I'm not beneath you. I'm right on the side walking with you, you know, like a guide. You know, if you fall, it's the only time I'm gonna look down on you is when we're picking you up. And letting folks know that, you know, they have a sacred purpose here and that we need them.